What do you need to know to pass the first subtest of the CSET Multiple Subjects Test? My name's Scott Roselle, founder of 240 Tutoring, and in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to know. This video is going to look specifically at the social studies concepts you're going to need to know for the first subtest of the CSET Multiple Subjects exam. So how do I know? Well, as the founder of 240 Tutoring, I have studied this test upwards, downs, left, right, backwards, forwards to make sure that 240 Tutoring can offer the best study guide possible. And I'm going to share them with you, so keep watching. And please, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, make a comment, let us know how we're doing. It's things like likes and subscribes and comments that help us keep making these videos for future teachers just like you. The social studies concepts found on the first subtest of the CSET Multiple Subjects exam can really be divided into three different categories: ancient civilization, United States history, and California history. Now, the CSET can complicate things because they weave geography and history together into one narrative. So you really have to know how geography impacts human behavior and the consequences it can have on human decisions, which is really all history is, to be successful on the CSET test. The first thing you need to know is how geography impacted the ancient civilizations. Now, when I say ancient civilizations, I mean specifically Mesopotamian, Egyptian, Kush, Hebrew, Greek, Indian, Chinese, and Roman civilizations. So what does it mean for geography to impact those civilizations? Let me give you a few examples. The civilization of Egypt was surrounded by desert on three of its sides, and then in the north it had the Mediterranean Sea. This insulated it very well from foreign armies, because a foreign army would either have to come through the sea or cross a desert to invade Egypt. So because it was geographically isolated, it had a lot of room to flourish for the arts and science and technology, allowing it to make great advancements. If you look at the Greek city-states, they were geographically isolated due to the mountainous terrain in Greece. So while the Greek city-states shared a common affiliation of being Greek, the cultures of, let's say, Athens and Sparta were vastly different. Israel, the Hebrew civilization, is at a distinct geographic advantage when it comes to trade because it was at a crossroads between a lot of large civilizations as well as the Mediterranean Sea. In addition to knowing how geography impacted these ancient civilizations, you need to know the major contribution of these ancient civilizations to society today. Now, according to the CSET, ancient civilization also encompasses early and medieval civilizations. Questions from this time period are going to, again, deal with the geographic impact on the civilization as well as their intellectual contributions. Now, the early and medieval agers are going to look at slightly different civilizations. They're going to look at the Chinese, Japanese, African, Arabian, Mesoamerican, Indian Highland, and European civilizations. In addition to knowing the geographic impact and intellectual contributions to these civilizations, you're also going to need to know a few specific concepts. And those concepts are really going to be focusing on the fall of the Western Roman Empire, so make sure you understand the timeline for the demise of that empire, as well as the rise of feudalism in Europe and Japan. Make sure to brush up on your pre-Columbian Mesoamerican art and culture, as well as the impact and influence of Islam and Christianity on European, African, and Middle Eastern civilizations. And P.S., check out the Magna Carta. It's a big deal. Now, the big concept to know for ancient civilizations is how geography impacted specific civilizations. So spend some time looking at some maps of ancient civilizations, looking at its relative terrain like rivers and mountains, and its relative location to its neighbors. How does its neighbors impact its military, economic, political, and cultural decisions? Now, on to United States history. The United States concepts are not nearly as broad, but on the flip side, they're going to be more specific, so you need to know more specific information. And United States history really starts with the question, why did European explorers begin exploring the lands that we know today as the United States? I'll give you two words: Northwest Passage. Make sure you understand it. Along with the Northwest Passage, you need to be familiar with how the economic idea of mercantilism influenced European colonization of the New World. You need to know about the development of African slavery in the United States colonies and about the Revolutionary War, or what we might call the War for Independence. And about the Revolutionary War, you really need to know the military and political leaders of the colonies during this time, as well as the role of France in American independence. And if all this is overwhelming you, make sure to check the description because we have specific links to specific concepts to make your studying easier. Now, continuing forward in history, you need to know about the Articles of Confederation, kind of why they failed, and how they led to the US Constitution. You need to know the specific political philosophies put forth in the Constitution, like the political philosophy of checks and balances and separation of powers, as well as the Bill of Rights. And once you understand the political ideology of the new republic, make sure you understand the concept of manifest destiny. The belief in manifest destiny fueled America's expansion west across the Mississippi towards the Pacific. And it impacts all sorts of things, from the Mexican-American War all the way to the treatment of American Indians and how states and the slavery question was addressed. And finally, as far as concepts go, make sure you understand the general principles behind Reconstruction in the South. Now, the big concept to know in United States history is the ensured rights in the United States Constitution, specifically the separation of powers, the concept of checks and balances, the idea of federalism, and the nature of a democratic republic. California history is all about California. You probably didn't see that one coming. California history focuses a little bit on the pre-Columbian history of California, so make sure you understand the different tribes, the different culture, and the different kinds of art that was around during this time. Because once you understand those pre-Columbian ideas, you'll much better understand the next concept you have to know, which is the Spanish impact on California. And by Spanish impact, I'm referring specifically to the mission and encomienda systems. Make sure you know how the discovery of gold impacted social, political, and economic institutions in California. And then there's the California Constitution. You really need to understand the specifics of the California Constitution in relation to how it differs from the United States Constitution. Because progressive era concepts like reforms and recalls are found in the California Constitution, but not in the United States Constitution. You should know about migration to California, especially during the Dust Bowl in the 1950s and the impacts of suburbs like on the outskirts of LA, and how that impacted migration from Eastern United States to California, and the impact that migration had on the California economy, society, and culture. And you really have to know factors of California's water system, why it came up with the system it did, and how it impacts all aspects of California life. Now, the big concept to know for California, this is a concept that if you understand this, it's really the hinge of California history, is the Mexican-American War and how California transitioned from a Spanish state to a United States state. And that covers the major social studies concepts that you'll need to know. But the test requirements does make a very unique provision in that just because the test will cover ancient civilizations, US history, and California history, there's a few other concepts that the test reserves the right to put on the test form. And so this list includes economic concepts like scarcity, opportunity cost, supply and demand, the business cycle, fiscal and monetary policy. For other social studies concepts, it includes things like reading a map or a globe, or understanding geographic systems like the water cycle, or the idea of cultural diffusion. This can also include concepts related to philosophy, anthropology, general concepts relating to human migration. And while those concepts can be on the test, they may not be. So make sure you understand the big concepts relating to ancient civilizations, US history, and California history. Once you master those, look at those more secondary concepts, and you will ensure that you're gonna pass that test. Now, if you have any questions about the test, leave a comment below. If you have any thoughts about the video, leave a comment below. Let us know how we're doing, what you liked, what you didn't like. It helps us keep creating videos for teachers just like you so they can pass their test and get into the classroom.